sections H5.
Thank you. Could you repeat that?
And for the record, no other items were discussed other than the collective bargaining unit.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor by Ms. Casey. Second, please. Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Romero? Yes. Counselor Olivari? Yes. Counselor Casey? I have a motion by Counselor Casey, a second by Counselor Olivari. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries. Moving on to mayor's appointments, reports, recognitions, and proclamations.
For the sake of time, I'll forego that.
Moving on to councilors' reports.
Mr. Ulibarri?
Mr. City Manager, can you have a public works or somebody go up to South Pacific Park and the gazebo is pretty bad. It needs paint, it needs a little bit of work.
It's
I
hard
know
to
there's
hear.
some pieces of iron that they left there, I don't know if the contractor left them there. Can you have the city employees take care of that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Ulibarri. Anybody else?
I think I'll forego
Okay.
because of time.
I do want to recognize somebody up here. Mr. Romero has really taken charge of helping with the balloon fiesta and organizing everything. So he was up at 2 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning just to get to the balloon fiesta. He had to pitch in because some of our staff got sick, and he was out there passing stuff out for Las Vegas and greeting all the visitors there. And can't thank you enough, David, for that. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, our city manager's report, we have Mr. Leo Maestas.
Mr. Maestas?
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Can you post that on the screen? As I normally do, Mayor and Council, I'd like to introduce our two new employees of the month, Ms. Jaisley Gonzalez and Ethan Hamstein. They're both with our Recreation Department. Welcome to the City of Las Vegas family. Moving on to some project updates here. We, as everybody knows, we've been converting all of the street lighting in the City of Las Vegas. PNM was pretty much complete. It was found that their contractor installed some lights that did not meet the RFP color, the Kelvin. So we had instructed them to make sure they ordered them, and they're going to come back and reinstall a portion of those lights that were installed or were incorrectly installed. Moving on, this year the city has already improved some of our city-owned lights. The city owns just over 300 city-owned lights that we maintain outside of the PNM ones. Public Works Department and Facilities has already converted 162 of those lights. We set aside monies for another 50 in this year's budget, so those will be in at the end of the month, so we'll continue with converting those lights. Legion Park Road project, 15% completed. There's a lot of sidewalk improvements that are going on there. And there's also drainage culverts that are going in, which the public doesn't really see the surface projects going on or the progress going on, but there's a lot of infrastructure and sidewalk improvements, and then they'll move on to the asphalt and paving portion of that project. University, we just got the 60% drawings from our engineer. Public Works and myself will sit down and start going over those to see if everything that we've wanted in that project are included, and send our recommendations over to our engineer on that project. As we all experienced, we had a large hailstorm about a week ago. We're going to be submitting a property loss form for every city building, so we can try to get new roofs from all these city buildings, including every single vehicle that is insured under the City of Las Vegas, so we can get those all repaired. Lastly, Public Works, Mr. Arnold Lopez and his department identified a 23-year-old service agreement with the state of New Mexico to have a tower at our airport. That agreement was for a 7-year time from 2000 to 2007. It was then amended by, at the time, Mayor Sanchez, to go through 2014, we, and as well as the city, as well as the state, cannot track any payments that were given to the city of Las Vegas since 2011. So since then, we've communicated with them. We've give them an invoice for just over $15,000, and now we'll negotiate at today's market value for a tower of its size. I can imagine they've went ahead and leased out their own property to other organizations or other companies, so we're gonna make sure that
Main company?
the information technology, the state's, it's called Do It Now, but at the
Okay.
time it was the information technology, but it's called Do It Now. Moving on, this property was a big priority for the city of Las Vegas. Again, it takes a lot of manpower and resources to do a cleanup like this of its magnitude. It's been on the radar for a long time. This property has gone through the first and second red tags process without any communication with the owner of the property. So the city has gone ahead and cleaned the property. It's been a hazard for animals and potential trees to fall on neighboring properties. So we went ahead and cleaned it up. Now we'll be through the process. This particular homeowner contacted the city of Las Vegas because they knew we were serious about this abatement, and we'll be issuing him the bill for cleaning the property. If not, we go through the normal process of putting it through the courts and the abatement.
What's that address?
906 North Gonzales, I believe. It's closer to the plaza. Lastly, as Mayor mentioned and Councilor Romero mentioned, the city this year contributed to sponsoring this year's 51st Balloon Fiesta. As you can see from that first photo, that was the first day of the event. It's the largest, most photogenic event in the United States. We, with the help of Councilor Romero, we created with the help of our Sunny 505, which is our tourism contractor, we created a page for visitors to click on to not only visit and find out about the city of Las Vegas, but also to get on mailer lists so that we can send out events throughout the year to those. As of right now, we're closing in on 1,000 visitors that have come to the tourism page, and just over 300 individuals that we've collected information that we can email them. So I believe that that's it for my presentation for this month. So
Thank you, Mr. Maestas. Next.
Mr. Mayor, approval of minutes for September 13th and September 20th, 2023. Councilor Montoya asked me that I advise the public that a portion of the September 13th minutes, or video, should I say, was not seen. We were having some difficulties, but to let you know, however, that in the minutes, it is reflected that portion that was missing. So, just for the record.
I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the minutes of September 13th and September 20th. I did send in very minor corrections.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor by Ms. Casey. Second, please.
Second.
Second by Mr. Romero. Roll call, please.
Councilor Olivari?
Yes.
Councilor Romero? Yes. Councilor Casey? Yes. I have a motion by Councilor Casey, a second by Councilor Romero. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries. Moving on to our presentations, not to exceed 10 to 15 minutes. We have a presentation by Maria Gilrary, Utilities Director, reporting on Utility Department projects.
Welcome, Maria. Thank you for being here with us.
Mayor and Council. So I'd like to make a quick project update, and if there are any specific projects anybody wants to ask me about, but I'm going to look at maybe the top 5 to 7 projects. So first off, I want to go to the big four that we've been working on as a result of the fire: 2 sediment removal systems, Agua Pura, and the water treatment facility. So for the 2 sediment removal systems, all 4 of these are on schedule. The 2 sediment removal systems, they are currently in planning and design. And so we'd expect those to be completed by the end of the year, and we'll be able to move into construction. We're already communicating with FEMA and HPCC to make sure we're ready to move forward with the next funding request for the next phase. The larger projects, the water treatment facility and I'm on page 2 of this document. They're the 4 that are highlighted in pink. The next 2 big projects would be the water treatment facility and Agua Pura. Those, because of the complexity of the projects, the first thing we do is a preliminary engineering report. The preliminary engineering reports are due by the end of the year. We have received the draft of the PER for Agua Pura. So currently, our engineers, city staff, and our consultants are all reviewing it. Once it's finalized, we'll make that available to the public and to the council, and I will also be having the engineers provide a presentation to the council.
Could you briefly state what Agua Pura
Yes.
is?
So Agua Pura project is our effluent reuse project to be able to have reuse the water that we already get from the reservoirs, from our well field. We want a project where we can maximize the water that we already have water rights for. This project will treat that water to drinking water standards. We'll have an auxiliary, it's called an advanced water treatment system, that will retreat the water, and then we will pump it up to the reservoirs and blend it with river water, and then it'll be treated again. So it's actually 3 treatment processes: the initial, then the advanced water treatment, and then there's the final treatment before it goes back to the community. We are currently working with the Environment Department so that we are fully aware of all of our environmental requirements to ensure that all the water we treat and provide to the community continues to meet drinking water standards.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask?
Yes.
Has the city considered, how the people are going to receive this project?
So
Because I just read, I think it was the Journal, like last week, another place in New Mexico where the people absolutely rejected the Agua Pura, concept even. They don't want to drink effluent water.
So there's a couple differences, absolutely, Counselor. So there's a couple differences. Ours is indirect potable reuse. It's already being done in California, Israel, Singapore, Texas, Arizona. It's being done in multiple areas, and the difference is that the water that any community sends downriver goes to the next community. Effluent is already part of the process of treating water if you're not the first community on any water source. So the difference between that community you're speaking of and ours is it's called indirect potable. We blend it back in with fresh water straight from the mountain, our beautiful pristine water, and we blend that together, and again, we make sure that it meets all environmental requirements, standards, just like Santa Fe, Albuquerque, and every other community that does get the water. But specifically to answer your question, we are working, as a matter of fact, a little bit later on the agenda, we are working with a company that's going to help us with a SWOT analysis and a plan so that we can reach out to the community, educate the community, answer all their questions and concerns, and to be able to assure them that this water will meet and exceed drinking water standards. So we absolutely have been considering that, and I wanted to kind of do it in conjunction with the PER being ready. We're going to reach out to schools, elementary, middle school, high school. We're going to reach out to community events, everywhere and anywhere that we can talk with the public and answer their questions and provide the information. In many of the conversations I've had with folks, they're missing some components in this story, and we want to make sure they have all the information on what's being done to assure them.
I'm concerned that, we're going to spend money when there's a huge yuck factor on this. And so, I
absolutely.
think it's very important that people know that this is, kind of in the works already. And so we need to make sure that people are going to support it, they're going to use it. Otherwise, we'll be, kind of throwing money out the window. And I don't want
Absolutely.
that
So
to happen.
we absolutely do have that. We are aware that we need to make sure that we're educating the public on every aspect of it and being able to answer every question, whether it's hard or easy. We want to be able to assure them. I like to use that example that any community that is not the first on the river, they treat effluent from the previous community. That's just how water goes. When it flows downriver, it's a discharge from another community. But we do have standards, we do have requirements, and it'll be of the highest technologies. We're looking at membrane filtration, reverse osmosis, UV. All of the most modern technologies are going to be part of this project.
Thank you.
So the PERs are both anticipated to be completed, past draft, and finalized by the end of this year, and both of them, for the water treatment facility and Agua Pura, will be provided to the council along with a presentation. A couple of the other projects I wanted to highlight, I know, are the ones that are still at the forefront of the public's mind. Hot Springs, so the sewer line, there was one thing that was holding us up in closing out the sewer line. The manhole ring that was installed at Taos and Hot Springs was a little too tall, So before we would close out the project, we're making them remove that and lower that so it's a little bit more smooth right there at Hot Springs and Taos. And then the sewer line project will be complete. And then there's the water line project, which is still pending the permit approval from DOT. The project did have a change in how we were going to go ahead and install the water line across Mills. We submitted a permit application with all the information to DOT. They came back with their questions and concerns, and our engineer has addressed all of them, and it is now back with DOT for final approval. Once we get final approval, then we'll be able to move forward. And the difference was we were going to bore across the road, but there's too many utilities in that intersection that was highly likely would probably be impacted. So we spoke with DOT about allowing us to excavate and cut across the Mills, and DOT agreed that it was a better alternative. So that's what we're currently working on the water portion.
And on the big trenches that were made on Hot Springs Boulevard, are you working with the street department to get those filled in? Because I just drove through them yesterday, and they got washed out with the hail that we had last week.
I'll talk again with Arnold. We had discussed making sure that those continued to stay filled until, I believe they have a project in progress to pave that portion. And so I'll talk with Arnold about that. And there is a section that is excavated, because that's where one of the tie-ins at. It continued to be excavated in that area. We leave the heavy equipment in that area to try and minimize it. We are going to put a fence around there to make sure that it continues to be a safe area. Independence, I know, is another one that's been on everybody's mind. So Independence, when we installed the new sewer line, there were no cleanouts that showed that the bar, the homes, the alley, and then there's a couple other homes, and then there's Eye Candy. Those all show that they were tied to alleys or tied to the manhole, and that was incorrect. There were no cleanouts, so we were not able to locate them. We actually had to get inside almost every business and run a snake from inside the homes to locate the lines, because part of this project needed to be to take the taps for the customers off of the old line and put it on the new line. The new line is 15 feet deep, so that's not the ideal place to put it. So our goal is to be able to tie it into a sewer line that comes down. There's a little driveway 75 yards from South Pacific. That's at a much better elevation or depth for us to tie into, so that if anybody has to do any work on that line in the future, they're not excavating at 15 feet. So it was a safety concern. So that's why it's taking a little bit longer to make sure that we got every single sewer line, private sewer line, and that we're relocating it to a proper area. It did take actual physical excavation before we found many of the private sewer lines. So as soon as we get those done, then we will be able to close that up. The contractor will be able to finish with the concrete work that they have for the sidewalk. It's a separate contractor. We are holding him up, and then we'll be able to work on patching the road as well. So that, unfortunately, has been some unintended consequences of the sewer lines being kind of a mixed match of directions on where those sewer lines went. We were actually, while we were there, we excavated one line and found that another private contractor had damaged a private person's sewer line, and so we were able to help facilitate that company coming in and fixing it for the customer. And then I think the other one that I'd like to talk about is we are in the process of stuccoing and cleaning up that wall that's on Moreno and South Pacific. So once that building was removed, we were left with a wall that needed to be cleaned up. So we do have a contractor. We finalized the quotes. Contractor will come in and square it off, clean it up, stucco it, and ensure that there is the proper roofing material so that no water goes between the wall and the neighboring property. So that hopefully we'll have the requisition soon, and we'll give that contractor a notice to proceed to finish that work.
Maria, just to move things along, I've had a lot of people calling about Montezuma Pond.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Sorry.
And they're concerned about what's happening there, and if we're going to have a pond, or what's going on. I can't tell them.
So, following the fire, we did have a lot of sediment come down the river, and it was something similar that we had happen over the previous 20 years. In 2017, we excavated, made 8 feet of room for that water so that it could freeze again, because when you only have a foot or so, it's really hard to freeze. So with 8 feet of water, we were able to get it freeze again. Now after the fire, we had the same thing with tons and tons of sediment coming down the river. NRCS, along with Tierra Montes, were able to coordinate, and they hired a contractor on behalf of the city, but it's all being done through Tierra Montes and NRCS, hired a contractor to come out and remove. This is only sediment that is as a result of the fire. They're not cutting into the riverbed, they're not cutting into anything that's naturally there, they're only removing the sediment. So it is the same project that we will be doing upstream, because in many areas of our river, it's totally impacted with sediment, and we need to remove that sediment.
Thank you.
It looks beautiful up there if you can get a chance to swing by.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Maria. Yes.
Maria, I'd like to see, and Mayor, maybe you could put it on an agenda, future agenda. So all our, we've received some money from FEMA, we've received some money from the legislature pertaining to Peterson. I know in the past we've gotten some other plan and design money. So would you be able to get us a breakdown on how much funding, what year we got legislative funding or FEMA or whatever, break it down, how much we've spent, how much, because, and the reason why I asked this is because I was told by an individual, it seems like you guys are the plan and design company, the plan and design city. Like everything that we're always talking about is always we get funding and we're planning and designing, and I think that's kind of become a frustration in the community when we get funding from legislative, and we get, I know the FEMA money that we received. So could we get a breakdown and see where we're at on the past, let's say, 2-3 years that we've, been here, we've been tackling some of these projects?
We want to look at all of our funding?
I would say more related to the water.
Okay, well, that's what I mean, all of our
Yeah.
funding, because right off the top of my head, I can tell you, TRACVAC is construction, SCADA is construction, Hannah Park and Hot Springs are all construction.
Well, I guess more of the water, the dams, Peterson.
Right.
Because if I recall, some of the FEMA money was for plan and design of some of that project.
I don't believe we had any funding we had $600,000 we received for Peterson about 8 to 10 years ago, and that was when we transitioned from Peterson to Bradner. And now we have the $8 million. Since then, all the money we've used at Peterson for planning and design has all been city funds. So now that we have the $8 million, we'll be able to expedite the planning and design and go into construction.
And I guess this is the frustration is, we've been doing it for so long. When you plan and design, like, do they literally stop when we get the funding and then we start again? Or are they starting the whole plan and design?
If we talk one project at a time, if you're talking Peterson, we were doing it under city funds, and in my budget, I had requested $500,000 every year for planning and design, and it was about a $2 to $2.5 million planning over a 4-year period, because I couldn't commit my entire budget to planning and design for Peterson, so I was doing it in phases out of city funds, because we had been asked in the past, why are we always getting legislative funding? So we wanted to make an effort this time to show the city initiative. So the city put probably about $1.5 million of its own funds into Peterson, and we just now received funding to finish the planning and design and move towards construction.
Okay, could you get us a breakdown of that?
Absolutely. That's what I was kind of asking for. If we want to do specifically Peterson, or if you want me to give you a list, because, we've got a lot of SRF funding that went into constructed projects across the board.
So the first funding that we got, Mr. City Manager, from FEMA, it was specific to projects.
$2.6 million.
Yeah.
Those 4 projects.
I know Agua Pura was one of them.
Right. The treatment plant, the actual water treatment plant, and then 2 pre-treatments, one at Story Lake and one at the diversion.
So those are the 4 pink projects that I was talking about. So you do have to do planning and design. It's going to be $140 to $180 million for all 4 projects. So the first $2 million of that 140 to 180 is for planning and design for the 2 sedimentation facilities, and then the money that's used for the PERs for the water treatment facility and Agua Pura. And because of the complexity, PERs are very much needed before you start moving forward with the
I guess
wrong.
the important part here is just to see where we're at with that 2.6 million, how much we've spent.
Okay, yeah, I can give you an actual
How much of a percentage
update.
of the project was done, so that way we could actually have, those talking points when we're asked, because it's, even us, when we get those, well, you guys keep getting funding and everything's planned and designed, so we have those talking points to give to the community.
Absolutely. I'll give you a status on those 4, but I'd also like to give you some of the other ones, because sometimes we forget about all the projects we completed once they've been completed, and we talk about the ones that seem like they're they're not going anywhere. So I'll be glad to give you a little bit of a history over the last couple of years, plus specifically the FEMA stuff and Peterson. If there's another particular project, I'd be glad to give some specifics on it.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria. I appreciate you being here.
Yes, sir.
Moving on to the consent agenda? Yes.
I'd like to remove item number 1 to a separate, I make a motion to remove item number 1 into a business item. And that's
There's-
my motion.
There's a motion on the floor to move item 1 to business. Second?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Libari. Roll call, please.
Counselor Olivari? Counselor Casey? Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Olivari. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries. So if you'd like, I can read the 2, 3, and 4 into the record for
Please.
consent. Item number 2, request approval of Resolution 2331, fiscal year 2025, Section 5311, grant application funding request for transportation. Item 3, request approval to accept state appropriations from the Department of Finance and Administration in the amount of $525,000 over the next 3 years for law enforcement recruitment to higher enforcement support positions. And item number 4, request approval to destroy records included on the list for the Finance Department and Museum.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve consent agenda items 2, 3, and 4.
There's a motion on the floor by Ms. Casey to approve consent agenda items. Second, please.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Libari. Roll call, please.
Counselor Romero? Yes. Counselor Casey? Yes. Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Have a motion by Counselor Casey, a second by Counselor Olivari. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries. Moving on to our business items, we can go ahead and look at that first item that was removed from consent. And that is request approval of addendum number 2 to contract 382721 with Sauter Miller and Associates for professional engineering services as needed for the water distribution system. Ms. Galveri?
Mayor and council, this will be the third year for this contract, the third of 4 years for the contract for Sauter Miller. This is for work, the engineering and designing that they do for the water distribution system, not the water treatment system. So that would be our distribution lines throughout town, or any of the, from the tanks to the distribution to the public's service tap would be the distribution section. So that's what these engineering services are for.
Comments?
So it has nothing to do with the treatment at all?
Not water treatment, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just
Thank
had a
you.
question. Thank you.
What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve addendum number 2 to contract 3827-21 with Sauter Miller and Associates for professional engineering services for the water distribution system.
There's a motion on the floor by Ms. Casey. Second, please. Second, please. Second by Mr. Libari. Roll call, please.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Romero? No. Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Casey, a second by Counselor Olivari. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to our business items. Our first one is Las Vegas San Miguel Chamber of Commerce 2023 Quarterly Report. We have Mr. Philip Martinez, and I believe Angie is also here.
So, for the record, my name is Philip Martinez. I am the president of the Las Vegas San Miguel Chamber of Commerce, and this is basically a quarterly report which we had prepared, and I think it's been in your packets. You probably had a chance to review it. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah.
Yes.
So anyways, our staff did an awesome job of doing the quarterly report. But I wanted to bullet point some of the items. And we've been working very hard with the limited budget that we have. And, of course, one of the biggest things is that we have been managing the Welcome Center.
If you can get closer to the microphone so it'll pick up your voice. Thank you, Philip.
So anyways, we've been working really hard with the limited budget that we have to actually take care of everything that needs to be taken care of at the Welcome Center. And on the last page of our presentation, you can see how many visitors that we have per month. Of course, there's some months that have higher visitors than, than previous months. But we're, for example, July of 2023, we had 637 visitors. And so it's actually quite the task. We have a small staff, some of them are volunteers, and so we work with that. We continue to participate in small business events, whenever they happen, whether it be ribbon cuttings or grand openings or, groundbreakings, those type of things. So we make ourselves available to those events as soon as they ask us. And so, just ceremonies, the groundbreaking, the golden shovels, all that, we do all that. We collaborated with the city and numerous entities to have the Fast Cars, Hot Bikes, and Film Fun event. And we actually had 119 official entries, which will give us seed money for the next event as far as that goes. And so we have 117 vehicle owners that are willing to provide vehicles in these type of filming events. So we're happy about that. And we have 116 business members or individuals that are members of the chamber. In fact, we have two more businesses that signed up today, and so we're happy about that. We have our weekly radio program, which I hope you all have listened to, but it's very popular, and it's very, it actually brings listeners to one of our local radio stations. And it's very popular, and so we do that once a week, every Tuesday.
Which radio station is that, Mr. Martinez?
So it's SDC Broadcasting, which is KNMX, and their fellow FM stations. So there's 4 stations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And of course, we send all our information to any of our constituents, which may be other not-for-profits, other businesses that are trying to do business with the city of Las Vegas, whether it be magazines or, flyers or whatever. And so we continue to advertise that. We have an excellent website, which we advertise all that. And the good thing about us is that we don't just work with businesses, we also work with other not-for-profits. We work with schools, we work with higher education, we work with, people that are just trying to help people, and that's one of our biggest advantages that we have in our pocket, which I don't think a lot of other chambers really do that. And maybe there's some, but we make it an effort to help them, and so we're very in tune with what's going on in our community, and so we try to help everybody that's trying to help our community, and so we really focus on that. The Las Vegas San Miguel Film Commission, under the chamber, and we're planning a Red Dawn ceremony for it's a 40th year anniversary, and so we're planning to actually have some sort of ceremony, some sort of event, and so we have organizations that are willing to help us with that, and so that'll be next year sometime. So this is actually the 40th year anniversary of Red Dawn, and so we're very excited about that. And of course we'll, it may not be, monetarily, but we would like, the city's participation in helping us with that as well. And so we're working on that, and I don't know if everybody's seen it, but we are very active in our community, even though we have a small staff. Whether it's a Saturday or a Sunday or whatever, one of us will make it out there and make a showing, and at least make a showing and try to, give information to people. But the lucky part of us is that we make a presence, and I think that our city and county really, really appreciate that when they see us out there. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is we have a small staff, like I said, and so we did have an event where there was a violent event at the Welcome Center, and so we've been a little bit cautious because we only had one employee there at the time, and so we're a little bit cautious about working on the weekends because we don't feel exactly safe. So I just wanted to bring that to the city's attention. And the other thing that I wanted to stress is that I believe that and this is not a criticism, but that the city of Las Vegas is saving a lot of dollars by not having to staff the Welcome Center the way that it used to be. We're saving 1 or 2 employees, and when you talk about the dollars, it does save the city a lot of money. And so, we're hoping that within our next contract, we can just discuss that and move forward with that. But to that, I leave it open, Mayor and Council, to any questions that you may have.
Just thank you for all the work that you're doing. I know that you're on a shoestring budget, and you do a lot for the community, and I appreciate all the work that you do. And thank you for Angie, too, getting us involved with key players in the movie industry and so forth. So thank you, Angie, for all your hard work. Thank you, Philip. Anybody else? Go ahead, hit it. Maybe it's because this is off.
There you go, okay. I just want to thank Philip, too, and Angie and the others who work there. I think you've done an excellent job. And the report that you sent us for our packet was very, very informative. And I thank you for that, too. I think it was very well done. And we know exactly what you've done and how we're moving forward so quickly with the chamber. And I congratulate all of you for the hard work and the excellent work that you have done.
Thank you, Ms. Casey.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero.
I just want to add the same thing, Philip and Angie, I think the biggest, questions that we've had with any organizations that we fund or not, nonprofits is making sure that what we put in our scopes, that those are getting addressed. And as Councilor Casey mentioned, you're on par, and we're not having to come back and get mad at the organization or the city manager for not meeting those scopes. So I appreciate that, you're getting, what we request of and even more. So I guess, the specific was just, what's on the scope, and you're doing that.
Counselor.
Thank you. And just for the record, for the next report that they do, could you put it under reports? This is not an action item. So if you could put it under presentations or reports.
Certainly, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Philip. Appreciate everything.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Next order of business, please.
Item number 2, conduct a public hearing and request approval to adopt ordinance number 23-08, repealing and replacing ordinance number 2118, Article 13 cannabis zoning. We have our Community Development Director, Mr. Lucas Marquez.
I'll entertain a motion to go into a public hearing. There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero. Second, please. Second by Ms. Casey. Roll call, please.
Councilor Olivari? Yes. Councilor Romero? Yes. Councilor Casey? Yes. I have a motion by Councilor Romero, a second by Councilor Casey. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Will the people speaking on or behalf or against this please stand up and be sworn in by our clerk?
Yes. So those of you that wish to speak, please raise your right hand and state your name for the record. Under the penalties of perjury, do you swear that your testimony this evening is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marcus, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Mayor, Council, good evening. We, in the last meeting, we went ahead and did some adjustments to the cannabis ordinance, changing a couple of items on there. One being the fines dropped from 1,000 to 500, and the other was some definitions, kind of clarifying the differences between a manufacturing company and a retail company, commercial company. And with that, we went ahead and moved forward with the publication, and now we're back asking to see if we could go ahead and solidify.
Has there been any opposition or any concern regarding this?
I have had nothing come through my emails
Okay.
or to my office, sir.
All right, what's the pleasure of the council? Anybody want to testify and speak before we move on to a open session? No? Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
I'll entertain a motion to go into open session.
make a motion, go into open session.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero. Second, please.
Second.
Second by Ms. Casey. Roll call, please.
Counselor Romero? Yes. Counselor Olivari? Counselor Casey? Yes. I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Casey. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. We are now in a regular session. What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the adoption of ordinance number 23-08 and repeal and replace ordinance number 21-18, Article 13, cannabis zoning.
There's a motion on the floor by Ms. Casey. Second, please.
Second, Mr.
Second by Mr. Olivari. Roll call, please.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Casey, a second by Counselor Olivari. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Marquez, and thank you to the people who are here representing their business. Thank you so much. Thank you. Next order of business, please.
Moving on to item number 3, request approval of an encroachment agreement between Diana Padilla, owner of 305 Rincon Street, Las Vegas, New Mexico, and the City of Las Vegas. Mr. Marquez?
Mayor, Council, the property on 305 Rincon Street has about 2, maybe if all of 2 feet encroaching into city thoroughfare. It's been a long-standing agreement. Now that the residents have moved out, Ms. Padilla has to try to get this property on the market. So therefore, she's asking us if we could do the encroachment agreement that's been existing, and we're asking for approval of that, so we could go ahead and get that.
Has fire approved this and everybody? Has it gone through the proper channels?
Everything has gone through what it's supposed to go through, other than, of course, our council.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
So, Mr. City Manager, I know we had an issue with another individual with, there was the encroachment, and I can't remember what the other title, that eventually we had to come back and change it again. Is it the same? I can't remember what the other one
No,
was.
that was on Tilden and 10.
I know, but I'm just wondering.
Oh,
'cause
if
when
it's
we
the
used-
same.
When we adopted encroachment, then the title company said we had to use the other language, and we had to redo that again. Is that?
I do recall the conversation, Counselor, but I don't recall what the conclusion was of what we had to change in it. But correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Marquez, our attorney has already reviewed this.
Mr. City Manager, yes, sir, the mayor and council, the city attorney has gone through the encroachment agreement and has approved.
And I'm just saying, I mean, because we used encroachment, and then the other time we used another easement. So which one, I mean, was it easement that was the final that we approved, or?
I'll have to look it up,
And
sir.
I'm just asking this question because.
I think it was easement because it involved an alleyway. And in this case, it would be encroachment because it's not an alleyway, right?
We had originally adopted encroachment, and then we
Oh.
had to change it.
Oh, I
We
remember.
had to bring it twice. That's why I'm asking is, I don't know if she
Okay.
maybe wants to make sure with the title company, because we'll do this and we might have. But with that, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero. Second, please.
Second.
Second by Ms. Casey. Roll call, please.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Romero? I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Casey. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor, council.
Thank you, Mr. Marquez. Appreciate you being here.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Moving on to item number 4, discussion direction of legislative priorities for the 2024 legislative session. We have our grants consultant, Mr. Robert Archuleta.
Welcome, Mr. Archuleta.
Good evening, Mayor
Thanks
and
for being
Council.
here.
You have before you all the legislative priorities of the council and mayor for the 2024 legislative session. I did meet with each counselor, and I had some discussions with mayor also. So you have before you all the breakdown per the governing body for each of their priorities for this year's session. What I'm going to need to start submitting capital outlay requests is the dollar amounts for each of these priorities. I do have Councilor Olivares, he's using the same ones as last year, but I'm going to need the different dollar amounts for each one. So as soon as the legislative opens their portal for submission, I can start submitting those as early as probably next week. I did add 6 new projects to the ICIP. Those are being approved, reviewed, to be approved by DFA, by Linda Martinez. So those were added on. So the 6 projects that were added on are as follows: an animal shelter facility, City of Las Vegas backup generators, Lutheran and Collins Street repairs, 8th Street road improvements, the Litherland property improvements, and a new city hall and administrative building. Those were added to the ICIP.
Very well. What do you need from us, Robert?
Really, I just need direction in the next week that's coming, just to give me the dollar amounts so I can submit the capital outlay requests. And I'm also going to be putting together a brochure / pamphlet for the governor's office and for the legislature so that they can know what the city's priorities are for this session.
You want a response by when? Friday?
No, I think by like next Wednesday would be great.
Okay.
On some of these projects, we're still waiting for the engineer to give us a dollar amount. For example, some of the road work, we need
On which project?
Lutheran and Collins.
Yeah,
I did have some preliminary discussions with Arnold on those. So we kind of came up with some figures on it. I mean, it's going to be difficult until it gets fully planned and designed
Right.
to figure out what the costs are going to be. But I think the most important thing is putting it on the ICP.
Okay. So if you've discussed that with Mr. Lopez, then you can put in enough money to get us through the plan and design portion of the work for this legislative session. And then next year we can add whatever we might need.
yes.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero?
I just want to, Mr. City Manager, just make aware again, I know we keep saying it, and it seems like requests end up at our legislators' offices that aren't even within, they get on there and then we're questioning, well, where did they come from, right? So I think that's important that, even if staff does have some, that it's at least brought to the governing body and not just kind of thrown on there.
Before it's added to the ICIP?
Well, just in there's some that have been requested that aren't even on the ICIP. Am I correct in that, saying that?
Well, because you just said you added a bunch more. You added,
No, I'm just saying that other requests are going before with now, not even, as a matter of fact, even going through city manager or anybody. So I'm just making sure that there's that proper channel.
Mayor and Councilor Romero, for clarification, Mayor, I think what Councilor Romero is stating is that,
The governing body will typically go provide their legislative
Yeah.
priorities, and then somewhere along the line between the start of the session to the end, something is
Yep.
added that we end up inheriting as a city
got you.
for a project that was not a priority. So I think there's just a communication that needs to be held between the governing body and the legislature.
Yeah. And
I agree.
just, it's very difficult for a legislator to turn away somebody that comes to them and says, I really need money to fix my street. And they'll typically ask, is it on the ICIP? Did you make a request through the council? And if they say no, then it's like, oh, well, maybe this person didn't know. I'll go ahead and toss it in anyway. And then that gets funded and eliminates something that the city really needs. And so, but you really can't blame the legislators. But I think that your idea of putting together like a little brochure that specifies what,
Concrete projects,
these are what we want from the city. And then that way they know that anything else that comes to them from constituents is extraneous to what the city wants. And hopefully they'll focus on our priorities here, because we've been working on them pretty much for several years already, trying to get money for some of these projects. So maybe that might help a little bit.
Good.
I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Archuleta.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for being here. Next order of business, please.
Moving on to item number 5, request approval to award RFP 2024-08. This is the Agua Pura Las Vegas Public Engagement Campaign to Carroll Strategies and enter into contract. Ms. Galveri.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve RFP 2024-08.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero to approve.
Second.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Casey?
Oh, despite the yuck factor. Yes.
Counselor Olivari? Counselor Romero? I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Olivari. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries. Moving on
Thank
to item 6, request approval to award RFP 2024-05, water and sludge transfer and temporary storage to Hayes Plumbing and Heating. Ms. Galveri?
Mayor and Council, we submitted this RFP for water and sludge transfer that's being able to move sludge from our wastewater facility so that we can do maintenance on the equipment and/or the water facility. We put this out, we had one respondent, so we put it out again, and the second time we only had one respondent, and we did reach out to other contractors to try and get some options, and we still only had one responder. So I did meet with the contractor to make sure that they had the tankers and the capability of doing this work, and they do.
It's a pleasure of the council.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Romero.
do they have the employee capability? I know that's been an issue with, okay.
For this project, we actually needed this as an emergency, and so we are already using them under a quote process, and so yes, they've already provided the services.
Okay, I was gonna ask basically the same thing. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Council?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve RFP 24-05.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero. Second, please.
Second.
Second by Ms. Casey.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Casey. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries. Item number 7, request approval to award RFP 2024-01 for on-call sediment removal services to Northeastern Construction and GM Emulsion LLC and enter into contract.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Ulibarri,
just approve award RFP 24, which one was it? Item 7?
2024-01.
2401.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Ulibarri. Second, please.
Mr. Mayor, I just had a question.
Yes. Discussion?
Question two.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, this one, sediment removal, is this for the whole, I know I walked with you with another vendor that had come by. Is it for the whole thing that we walked through that one?
Counselor, this contract can be used for the entire river, all the city property, including the reservoirs for sediment removal. That vendor, along with others, was reached out to and did not propose.
I guess I had a question, because even at that point, I remember that there was specialty equipment and all that brought forth that that was gonna be needed, and I'm just curious how even
Yes.
everything that you spoke about and that we brought before us and the many times
Correct.
that I've asked, it was very unlikely that a small
I'm-
business would be able to do that.
In this particular case, and I did, thank you for the opportunity here, I did want to mention that after we completed this proposal, everybody who was eligible, meaning we had a couple that were non-responsive, so I couldn't consider them. Those who were responsive, I actually sat down and interviewed all of them, asked them about their equipment, asked them about their experience, talked to them about the process. We went out there with them again and explained that they would have to be able to get all the way to the other side, and they talked about how they would use, if you go out to the skating pond, you'll see it, how they use large beams to extend how they can get the equipment farther out and then start from the other side of the river and work back. So before I would make my recommendation, I sat down with every single one of them to make sure that they had the equipment or could get the equipment and that they had the experience, so.
What I kind of see here is I don't see the detail, and I guess my other question was first would be, because you said that we had somebody special that was doing the RFP, so who's the one that did the RFP, that put it together?
My staff put the RFP together.
I thought we were looking at a consultant to put it.
Not for this one. We talked to a lot of people to make sure that the scope of work would be very clear, because our original scope of work were kind of vague. And so we needed to make sure it was very clear on what we were expecting from the vendors, that they would need to be able to get all the way across the river, remove all of it, that the city was not going to have a place for them to remove the waste, they would have to get the permits, they would have to do all of that. So we upped the scope of work to make sure that all the responsibility was on the contractor.
I did look at the RFP, and to me, it does seem vague.
It hit all the points that they have to meet to be able to do what we need them to do.
Counselor, if I may, so this RFP targets mostly the river throughout the city limits. It doesn't target the reservoirs, which is a deeper reservoir, obviously, that would need specialty dredging equipment, and I think that vendor that we walked with is somebody that would do that type of dredging, not the type of just sediment excavation removal that we're doing with this RFP.
Where what is it called, those
Gabions?
gabion baskets
Yes.
and that, I thought that's,
Yeah, you would just need excavation equipment.
Long reach
for this
excavator plus the ability to move the equipment out into the river and then be able to bring it back. So, and they are already doing, both of these contractors are actually already doing this up, I believe, in Mora. So, and in other areas, so.
just, but I was under the impression, even from you guys, was that it was a specialty, it was that, and I just seen,
So
I'll leave my comments at that.
I apologize because the part about Peterson is correct, so I wasn't thinking about the actual dredging part, that these guys cannot do that. This would be long reach excavator work, the same thing that you'll see up at the skating pond is the type of work that they'll be doing in the river.
It's very easy to access,
It's the same process.
Mr. Mayor, I basically had a lot of the same questions because I do recall saying, being informed that it was a specialty.
It will be challenging. It'll definitely be challenging work.
And in looking at the list of, the equipment inventory for the person here, the proposers, doesn't include anything real special. I mean, bulldozer, just.
They'll need a long reach excavator, they'll need the beams, so just like what they're doing up at the skating pond right now. And then they do have the equipment to do what they need to do.
Okay, because let me get this, I'm almost there. Okay, it has an excavator, a skid steer, a dozer, and like four excavators, a loader, and 2 dump trucks. There's nothing special there to do that work. And so it's like, are we gonna end up with a situation where they?
Counselor, what the city was using when we were out there was a backhoe. And so this is what is needed. A long reach excavator is what's needed to be able to reach farther out and be able to remove the sediment. They haul it off out of the river, they put it on the side to allow it to drain and dry a little bit, then they put it in a dump truck and they're gonna be required to haul it off.
Well, I'm not a construction person, but I do have some concerns on that.
So which item on there would be the long reach excavator?
I would have to do my research on the number. I spoke with both of them and I said, do you have access to, or do you have a long reach excavator? And the answer from both of them was yes.
I'm just doing a quick
'Cause the
search, the
yeah, 'cause the
E35D
inventory-
is one of those small excavators.
Yeah, one of them says small or mini excavator.
And the contractor, if they don't have the equipment, can rent.
They can rent, they can lease, they can buy.
lease if they don't have the equipment. Huh?
You didn't put it in the
It's not in the
proposal.
proposal though.
Oh,
They can, whatever equipment they produce, it's just because they list certain things does not mean that if they acquire something, they can, they're restricted from using it.
Okay, so here, it also says that the construction company is ready to mobilize and fulfill the duties for the on-call sediment removal project. So does that mean that it's not something that they're going to do and get it done? Or are they gonna have to come back and?
That means as we need them, Counselor, we will call them and say, we need you to come out and, you know, we've had a rainstorm and it's filled up the gabions. This is not unfortunately, it's not a project where we say, go do X and you're done. It's in this case, go remove the sediment and then we have another storm and we have to send them back out again. And it may be several months between taskings that they're assigned, it may be several weeks. And I will tell you that one of the reasons why I want to award it to two is if the number one ranked company does not meet our needs, then we have a second company to go to.
Okay, and I didn't see anything that said that they would be working with the gabion barriers. I mean.
They're not going to be working with the barriers, they need to actually stay away from those
Well, that's
and
what
just
I'm
remove the
saying,
sediment.
But you just said that they would, you know, clear the sludge from.
From sorry, Counselor, I wasn't clear, from the area. When I say we need to go clean the sediment from the gabions, it's that area where the sediment is being held upstream of the gabions. So no, they're not going to be allowed to get anywhere near, I mean, within probably 10 feet of those gabions because we do not want them to fail.
And how many other projects are both the Emulsion and Northeastern, do they currently have contracts?
I do not have any work for either one of them in utilities. I don't know if anybody else is using them.
Okay, because it says Northeastern Construction doesn't have work volume with a city that is less than 75% complete.
Correct. So, Counselor, what that is when we accept proposals, if we have two vendors, one is already doing 5 or 6 jobs with the city and another one doesn't have any, we prefer to go with the company that doesn't have any, as long as they meet all the requirements. So the part of that evaluation is to say that they're not already doing several other jobs that are less than 75% complete. In this case, neither one of them is doing anything for utilities.
Mr. Manager, do you know where else the construction company is doing work for the city?
We've done numerous projects with either of those two.
Talking right now.
Right now, Northeastern Construction is doing this welcome area right here with the glass. Obviously, he subcontracted the glass work out to another vendor. GM Emulsions paved the road right here by Veterans Park in the last few months. Northeastern Construction did the stucco wall at the fire department on Legion about 2 months ago. Do you know any other GM Emulsion projects that?
We've done projects, you know, throughout the city. They did the chip seal over on, you know, in your area. But currently, they do not have any work with us either.
And been kind of, I don't know who was doing that glass room or whatever it is. Sure has taken forever. I hope the removal of sludge doesn't take as long. We'd be all drowning in mud. So is there a timeline that you've
As soon as
specified?
we award it, we will be getting them out there as, one of the caveats is weather dependent. They've got to be able to work in whatever environment, you know, which means if it's raining or flooding, they won't be able to work in there. But we want them out there as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have any other.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the council?
A motion, Mr. Mayor,
Oh,
by Counselor
I'm
Livari.
sorry, Mr. Olivari has a motion. You need a second? No second, the motion dies. Next order of business, thank you.
Moving on to item number 8, request to award RFB 2024-07 Senior Center Parking Lot Project to Pacheco Construction in the amount of $1,127,204 to include New Mexico GRT. We have our Community Services Director, Ms. Wanda Salazar.
Thank you, Wanda. What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to award RFP 24-07.
Thank you, and thank you for being here, Wanda. There's a motion on the floor to award the contract. Second? Second? No second, motion dies. Thank you. Next order of business.
Item number 9, discussion direction regarding contracts, agreements, and memorandums of understanding. Council Romero?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I asked for this item to be on the agenda based off of a call I received more pertaining to MOU with Luna Community College. And in that conversation with city manager, it was under the understanding that he could sign off on all MOUs. And I know there was some discussion at one time, and I think, and the reason why I brought this is for more clarification that I think he needs to understand, what direction we give with MOUs. I believe, this is my 2 cents, is that I believe that anything monetarily has to be brought before us. If it's for them to use the park or the rec, for events or whatever, I think, that's something under his title, but I wanted to see how you all felt, and because, anything that binds us monetarily, at the end of the day, we're the fiscal responsibility of this organization. And I wanted to see what you guys felt.
What's been the established practice, Cassandra, since you're the clerk? Do you remember?
So prior, we had all the RFPs, of course, and all the addendums to those RFPs, all of them come to the council. At one point, that stopped happening, and then we went back to doing that. Then I believe in the last couple of years, we've only had certain ones come to the council that were over the 60,000, if I'm not mistaken.
On contracts or MOUs?
On contracts.
Yeah.
And MOUs,
MOUs is they're asking about.
MOUs specifically?
Yeah.
MOUs, some have been brought, but most of them have not.
Would it be a consideration for the council to consider that anything that involves city funds, that it comes through council?
Mr. Mayor, I think that all MOUs should come before the council because they are a contract and they are binding. And I don't care if it's like for $10 or $10,000 or whatever. I really think that it needs to come to the council so that we can see what agreements are being made between the city and other entities.
Very well.
And I know that the city manager can spend money up to $65,000, but to me, that means to buy equipment, to approve, purchases up to $65,000, but not a legal contract those have to come before the council.
What's the pleasure of the council? I'll entertain a motion.
So we have a disagreement between the two, but
Well,
I was just thinking anything that's monetarily, if it's an MOU between let's say, city schools and the city to use a park or something, I don't know. But I guess
Well,
there's also that
that's-
liability that,
That's
binds
right.
us to. So I guess now that you said that.
Counselor, if I may, so almost every year, almost every MOU has some type of compensation, so there's the, what is it called? Anti-donation clause. So almost every MOU has to have some dollar amount tied to it, whether it's the schools, anybody, organizations, nonprofits, anything.
that's why I'm saying that those MOUs should come to us because of that.
Do you want to make a motion, Ms. Casey?
I move that all MOUs, contracts, agreements with any other entity come before the council regardless of the amount of money that's involved.
There's a motion on the floor. Second, please.
Second, Mr.
Second by Mr. Romero. Roll call, please.
Counselor Olivari? No. Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Romero? Yes. I have a motion by Counselor Casey, a second by Counselor Romero. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 10, discussion and approval to fund $10,000 for spay and neuter clinics. Mr. Counselor Romero?
Again, Mr. Mayor, I just want to add to this. I know, we've had the animal advocates, basically saying that the city isn't addressing some of these issues. And I guess the reason why I brought this before was, before council, because I think it's important, again, the city manager could easily the city manager could easily, do that with the 10,000, but I think that it's important that, we know what's going on and we set a priority. Basically, what this is 10,000. I know the county was going to be seeing if they could seek another 10,000 to match, and then maybe another organization. So within the two entities and the organizations, whether it's the Friends, there's a Friends of San Miguel Animals, and then there's AWC. I think it's it's an effort to show that we do care about tackling an issue that has been a part of a big issue in our community. So
Would this money come from general fund, Leo, or how would this money be?
Yes, sir, we would have to set aside general funds for this project.
All right, at this point, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve $10,000 for spay and neuter clinics.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero. Second, please. Second by Ms. Casey. Roll call, please.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Counselor Romero? Counselor Casey? I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Casey. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, before we adjourn, that was the last item, I believe.
can I add one?
Oh, certainly.
Just, Mr. Mayor, just on that, I just want to just note that, Mr. City Manager, can you make sure that, this goes through the animal shelter and that all procurement is followed when NOB is very involved in, trying to see what organization or spay and neuter company would be in. So just that, for the record, that we're going to make sure that procurement and everything's followed to get the best obtainable price. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I believe Ms. Wanda Salazar had a question for the council, if she may.
Absolutely. Wanda?
Good evening, Mayor, councilors. Thank you for taking my question. My question is really pertaining to item 8 and the fact that it died at session. We have a deadline for this funding. We have 1.1 million that was approved through Aging and Long-Term Services. If this dies, this expires June 30th, 2024, we will lose the funding. We can go back to RFP, but we're running out of time. And so I just wanted to bring that to your attention and let you all know. This bidder, Pacheco Construction, was the only one out of 3 bidders that was within our budget. I did request an additional 40,000 so that way the city doesn't have to pay any of this funds. But at this point, if we go out to bid it, I don't know what would happen. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Yeah, you're welcome to place it back on on another agenda.
Okay.
For next week.
Okay,
And see
we'll
if
do
it
that.
passes then.
Thank you very much.
Can we just bring it back now?
I don't know what the rules are to bring back an item.
I believe it can be reconsidered if it's one of the counselors.
Consider item number 8.
There's a motion on the floor to reconsider item number 8.
I just think according to the rule, I don't know how we would do it, but it can't be the same motion that I made because the motion that I made, so we'd have to be somewhere creative on an amendment
Well,
to,
it's just a motion to reconsider, so we vote on that first, and then we think about how we're
okay,
gonna
that's
make-
right.
So, do we want to reconsider?
Yes.
Second that, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion on the floor by Ms. Casey, second by Mr. Romero, to bring it back on the table. And now I'll entertain a motion to approve the contract.
We haven't voted on while everybody.
On the reconsideration, we have a first and a second. Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Counselor Casey? Counselor Romero? I have a motion by Counselor Casey, a second by Counselor Romero. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries. Now the reconsideration of the item.
Mr. Mayor, I move that that let's see, what is it, Pacheco Construction be selected to do the work that was put in for bid for RFB 2024-07.
There's a motion on the
Is that
floor.
different enough?
There's a motion on the floor by Ms. Casey, second, please.
Second.
Second by Mr. Olivari. Roll call, please.
Counselor Romero? Counselor Casey? Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Casey, a second by Counselor Olivari. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you very
Wanda.
much.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
There's a motion to adjourn by Ms. Casey, second by Mr. Ulibarri. All in favor? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
That's the only way to bring it back as a consideration.
Yeah.
The other one, just for that.